Okay, it's 6 o'clock. Let's go ahead and get started. Who do we have here? Amy, Robert, Paul, that's a quorum. Dave. So, and Annie said she'd be late. So let's open the meeting at 6:01. Thank you all very much. It's kind of exciting, I think, to be here with one screen. Oh, we have a flag. You guys want to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You see that there have been some changes to the agenda, and those are noted here. All right, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. The first and a second, any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Robert? No. Frozen. Amy?
Aye.
Aye.
Robert? All right, there you are. And you're back.
Aye.
Very good, thank you. Pens write much better when they are extended. Do we have anybody? We do have a couple of attendees. This is the public comment portion of our meeting. If any members of the public would like to address city council, this is the time to do it.
So Tim Elsey is the only public member. Johanna is here taking our minutes. And so
none here. All right, I'm going to call that and moving on. Well, Tim, you're up.
Hi, good evening. It's good to be with you guys again. I don't know if you can see me or not. I'm happy to turn on my video if there's a good way to do that.
I can't hear. Let's see. Yeah, you should be able to show your video if you want.
Just get back into the groove again.
Oh, sorry.
It's been a while.
Right.
No, Carl?
Okay, how about now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Bam.
Mhm.
First of all, I just want to say that the county helping with the building inspections does seem to be working really well, but a lot of that success is due to the city's team. The team has been great to work with. They've been awesome with communication. Liana and I meet monthly and we talk about any issues. There are very few when we talk, but you've just got a tremendous team there. So I just want to say thank you for that. And the reason that it's a success is because we're working together well and we're communicating well. Also, I just want to give an update on our new assistant building official. He's not quite so new anymore, but Arnold Bell. He did receive his residential building inspector certification. The guy is annoying, smart. He's very, very good at what he does. He takes so much pride in what he does. We're all going to be so lucky that he is here to serve the community. So I just want to give him some kudos. You know, we've been lucky to have Marlon for many, many years, and those are some big shoes to fill. But if anybody can do it, it's going to be Arnold Bell. He's doing a tremendous job. And so the permits that we've had since the beginning of the year, we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 new single-family residences within the city that have been started since the beginning of the year. We have 6 mechanical permits, 1 plumbing permit, 1 roofing permit, and then 2 remodels. So it's been busy. And what we're seeing with the economy right now, I might have mentioned before that I look at really 2 things as economic indicators in my profession. And the one is building permits, septic permits, development permits, that type of thing. And the other is solid waste tonnages. And our solid waste tonnages have been very high so far this year. So those indicators to me say that the economy is up and moving very well. And if you have any questions on that, I'm happy to answer them.
Hey, Tim, can you hear me?
Again.
Thanks. I'm in Bend, so I'm not available directly right there. Just a couple of quick questions. When a contractor pulls the permit itself, what is the procedure that we're using to confirm that contractor is licensed and has the appropriate license?
Councilman Muth, I'm gonna have to get back to you on that. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Yeah, and Tim, you and I can maybe talk on the phone later next
Sure.
week. It's kind of a similar question. As part of the permitting process, when we do the standard inspections there, are we doing any review or insurances to make sure the subcontractor that's part of that particular inspection, whether it be electrical, concrete, they trenched out the ditches, are we making sure that the subcontractors are licensed, or are we not? And this is a question, do we not take any involvement in that?
Then again, I'll find out and I can get back. I'll find out.
Okay, thank you. Oh, yeah, let's just talk next week.
You bet.
Thank you, Tim.
Mhm.
I've got a question, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Yeah, hi. I'm wondering if you've gotten any feedback from the public about this new kind of relatively new process and new inspector and like how it's working for people. Have you heard?
I have heard a little bit and it's all been pretty positive, but I would like to, if you don't mind, I'd like to toss that to your city team and see what they've heard.
Yeah, so we haven't heard any complaints. Actually, recently, someone, when we mentioned it, they had some questions about building a structure, and we said, hey, we referred them to Marlin. They said, okay, well, I've worked with Marlin before, and they were comfortable with that. So again, we haven't heard anything negative as far as the inspections or anything goes. It seems to be working out. I think people are getting used to, I mean, right now, any delay in process is due to the volume of work. And so we're letting people know that ahead of time. And that would be the case whether it was here or at the county. But I think everyone's really happy with how it's going. I haven't heard much otherwise.
And I do want to mention that, so the other day we had a red tag a structure and Marlon made sure that he went in and he talked to the city team so that they knew if they were going to get any calls, what was going on and the reasons why. So, and it's that type of communication that makes this a success.
Awesome, thank you. And then just as a follow-up, what sort of delays are we talking about when you say there's potential delays due to in processing paperwork and permits due to and inspections due to volume?
Oh, so I mean, if
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, so, I mean, typically, if we have nothing on our plate, it doesn't take us long to turn around a permit, maybe 2 to 4 weeks. But that's, of course, pre-COVID and pre-boom. So, you know, of course, now, I think the turnaround time that we're telling is 6 to 8 weeks, which is pretty standard, and I think is actually pretty good for any city to turn around a building permit.
Yeah, that sounds very reasonable. Liana, thanks for that timeline. So 6 to 8 weeks is what folks are being told, and 6 to 8 weeks is pretty much what it sounds like we're delivering on. Yeah.
Correct.
Cool. Thank you.
Clark County's a lot worse.
Yeah. So.
Any other questions? Comments? All right. Tim, thanks for taking time out of your evening.
You bet. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
It's so polite. Okay. Okay, so for COVID update, we have, well, the new gate's been in place for a while. The city hall is open. Can walk right in, don't have to buzz the buzzer to get in. Still looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with the phases. There's continued adjustments to phase 3 that we've been monitoring. One of the things that I did notice on the phases is that in phase 3, restaurants are still required 50%, but the 6 feet is if you have a barrier that's at least, what would they say, eye height or shoulder height or something, that you can get tables a little closer together. I'm looking up at the screen like you guys are gonna see me better. I should probably look right into that thing right there. So, and then, there's still continuing to thaw. Things are continuing to thaw. We're still looking, there's talks of trying to get a small music festival together, but can't really say too much about that until the details have been ironed out. But there are some efforts to try and get back together again. Anything else, Liana?
No,
All right.
not that I have.
All right. And do we have Carl?
No, that's what I was distracted by, sorry.
Oh,
Um,
my hair's getting blown back.
Can you hear me?
Right?
Can you guys hear me?
Hi.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, I'm labeled as city laptop, I believe, and I apologize for that.
No, I see you're Ben Shoemaker.
Oh, your label is Ben. Hi.
Can you see me? I don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
I
I
think
got
you can see me
Okay.
because I can see you in the background. All right, I apologize for that, but yeah, I guess I'm labeled as Ben. I have no idea why. Okay, sewer treatment plant update. Final design, 90% design was approved by Department of Ecology a couple of months ago. Final design of the wastewater treatment plant is scheduled to go out to bid. To be done in June of 2021. There's going to be a couple different times things go out to bid after that. The first one would be the equipment that goes into the wastewater treatment plant. That is scheduled to go out to bid in August 2021. And then the project bid, which would be the remainder of everything that goes into the upgrades, will be December 2021. Rock Creek Lift Station is still scheduled to go out to bid late this month. I think I mentioned in the last meeting it was delayed due to the shorelines permit that we had to go through, actually 2 separate ones, since we will be doing the storm line repair that needs to be done as well. Everything's still going well at the plant. We're still battling our settleability. Filamentous bacteria kind of came back a little bit, not as bad as it was. That inhibits settling. If we don't get good settling, then our solids haul outs are more frequent. So we're trying to get a handle on that. You can see we were back down as far as BOD, back down to normal limits after all the rain has subsided. And that's about it for the wastewater treatment plant update.
Good job out there. Good job, Ben.
Hey, thank you. Ben's a multitasker.
Ben's not here, man.
All right. Any questions, comments for Carl on the sewer plant update? All right. All right, Ben, you're up. Which Ben?
Yeah. Robert, can you hear me at this
Yes,
level?
I can.
Okay. So you all have what I think could be a final draft of the parking amendment to the zoning code. I won't go into much detail in it. We made the changes that you requested at the last meeting. Now it just is down to you to make sure that this is good enough. And I'll stress good enough for now. As the planning commission recommended this to you, they said we have other issues that we need to deal with parking, but we're ready to make this step. So I'm happy to report that we are able to make some progress on those other issues. I think talked about it at the last meeting too, but we should be getting a graduate intern from the University of Washington, as long as there are interns that are interested in our parking projects and we're comfortable with them. The application period for that closes next Friday, and we'll do interviews shortly after that to make sure that we've got a good fit. So far, we have one person that submitted their resume for the project, and I see that as a good sign. So That in turn will be responsible for completing a gap analysis to show where additional on-street parking could be added. Then they'll be working with the Stevenson Downtown Association to inventory and characterize all the off-street parking. That'd be on-site private parking that's provided, and organizing a volunteer effort to go and count the usage of that parking on a couple different days during the year. One likely on a Tuesday and one on a Saturday or a weekend day to get an idea of what the weekday traffic is and the weekend traffic is. And that'll help us tailor these parking standards more once we have that usage data. It'll also help us to develop the fee in lieu program that we've been talking about. On page 22 of the agenda, I've got these next steps laid out, or the packet. I've got the next steps laid out. I'm a little ahead of myself there where I say steps 4 through 5. I thought that contract was going to be ready for you tonight. It's not quite ready, but we have, we're in the final stages of finalizing contracts with transportation traffic consultant, and they will be taking the information that we give them from the intern, taking the information we give them from the downtown plan, developing a cost estimate for adding to the parking inventory, and projecting future development so that we can tie those things together as part of that fee in lieu program. So that's moving forward. There are 3 other actions that don't have any specific timeline associated with them. That's going to be the final details of that fee in lieu program and making sure that an ordinance is ready for you to adopt. And then also dealing with the related issue of on-street parking management, whether there's overnight prohibition, whether there's resident permits, just dealing with some of those issues that we see. I imagine that conversation will expand quite a bit before we know exactly what the scope is, but I'm sure as it expands, we'll talk about some sort of hourly limit during the day for downtown in congested areas, and I don't know where that will go. So that's something to expect in the future. What's in front of you now is the same as we discussed last meeting with the amendments that you requested. Including one related to emergency public health situations for outdoor seating. You all will see that later on your agenda too.
Well, I think this is definitely a step in the right direction.
Absolutely.
And whether or not it's perfect, only time will tell. Might be revisiting it again sooner rather than later. We'll just see how it works out. But I think it's good.
Any other comments? I can't stop looking up. What do you guys think? You want answers in my ear?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 2021-1172 as has been presented on reducing parking requirements and increasing residential building capacity.
I'll second.
All right, there's a first and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Robert?
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you. Good job, Ben.
Yeah, nice job. Thank you.
All right, let's talk some more about security camera use policy. We did start this conversation at our retreat, but we found ourselves up against what we decided was going to be a hard out, and we left. So that's good. But just wanted to kind of firm up what we talked about. Leon and I talked about it after the fact and figured that the general consensus was we really didn't need cameras in City Hall. Having them outside of City Hall sounded like a good idea. Our different facilities, having one in, maybe just one inside the fire hall, because there's generally nobody in there, and if there is, it would be good to know. But basically, it's just looking at the monitoring the exterior of our different facilities, and that's an easy enough target to attain. But did you guys have any more thoughts, or did you have any more, well, any different thoughts since the retreat?
My concern, I think, has already been brought up, but the idea of having the cameras inside where the employees are, kind of monitoring that, I am not in favor of that at all. You know, if you want to monitor the front door, that's one thing, but do it in a way that, you know, does not affect how the work is going on here within the office.
And that was the message that we heard the loudest.
Yeah.
I've got some questions. Scott,
Go ahead.
my concern, the inside stuff has been addressed, but in terms of the outside stuff, what are you looking at in terms of who has access to that video footage, how long it's held, how it's accessed? I'd like to just make sure that we're doing research on that and ensure that it's as minimal as possible.
So depending on the system will determine how the footage is accessed. Just about all of the systems have a cloud component. Not all of them are part of the default package. Like for example, Lorex, you can push it to the cloud, but it's typically accessed on site through a physical device on the network. It sounded like ADT had integrated the cloud component. Cloud seems to be the way that these systems are going, because that's usually been the pain point, is where is it stored and how do you get to it? But typically the access is locked down to specific people, and more times than not, it's circling back to say, I hurt myself at your facility, and then I would like some of your money. And then the facility has the chance to go back and say, yeah, you're right, or no, you didn't. You tripped over your husband's feet. I've seen that. The other part is something has gone missing, and I would like to know more about who was here, and then it becomes where it's law enforcement. More times than not, it's law enforcement that would request access to that footage. But I guess I'm not really sure what your main concern is, but it's not going to be something that is typically available for just anyone to look at. Now, Ken would have a better answer the question about who should be allowed to have access, and then the retention period, of course.
Is it subject to public records request, for example?
Exactly. Yep.
Mayor?
Yeah.
Can I chime in?
Please.
Yeah, so yes, for whatever period of the retention required, it is a public record and it is subject to public records requests. I doubt whether our public record policy has any kind of cost included for obtaining these records. There's limitations on what you're allowed to charge. It's in the RCWs, and the AG has pages on what you can charge and what's your retention for this sort of a document. It is a document. So we have to keep in mind, we have to make sure that our instructions to whatever cloud provider we use, that the documents are retained for exactly the retention period, no more, no less. You don't want these things going on past retention, because as long as you've got it or it's available, it is subject to a records request. If it's unavailable because it's past its retention period and it's been destroyed, or erased, however it's done, then it's not subject to a records request. So that's something to keep in mind and be very aware of as you're setting this up.
So Amy, did you have specific concerns that I can either address or research further?
Yeah, not really. I mean, I would like to be apprised when we pick the contractor of what the retention period is and, you know, obviously the reasons why we're choosing that particular vendor, but, no, I just think proceed with, you know, with caution as you're doing, that it's, it feels like a really big change to me and it feels a little bit invasive. And so I just would like it to be, I think it's necessary, but I want it to be implemented in a way that's as minimally invasive as possible, if possible. That's all.
So Amy, one thing that I can point out is recently, as in yesterday, we discovered that the catalytic converter was stolen off of one of our vehicles. Right after I read the article in the Columbia News about being careful of, there are people going around stealing catalytic converters. So if we had camera, that would definitely help in the investigation. We don't, and it was parked outside. So it was in a secured yard, but it was still parked outside.
So that brings up a question that I have. Is there any way to tie the video system, the cameras, into an alarm system that would be triggered at the sheriff's office? So if something was going off, then that video would automatically feed to the sheriff's office. I believe they have something like that set up with the high school right now, or the schools. So I just encourage us to maybe take a look at that. They're not monitoring it 24/7, but if there was an alarm, i.e. intrusion into the secure area, then that alarm would go off. They would get notification of that. Maybe we'd get a better response. Not saying that they wouldn't respond,
Right.
but a quicker response than the next day when we find out that the engine's really loud.
So I have a couple answers to that. I know that the Eagles has actually been in some trouble and they had to replace their sensor, but when they have an alarm, there is response. The sheriff will roll. There are some systems, the ones that I'm most familiar with are more on the residential scale, but because there is a camera involved, if you are paying their monthly fee for monitoring, if there's an alarm out within a certain parameter, then the team, the company that's doing the monitoring will automatically get access to that video and say, there's something nefarious going on and I can tell, and they will expedite the response or the emergency call, or they can see that it's two raccoons fighting over a piece of fish and they silence the alarm and they go on about their day.
Right.
So as far as that will be something that can be part of the discovery and the discussion as we move closer to picking a vendor.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's interesting, Liana, that you said that, because at the hospital today, we had the exact same thing happen last night. Catalytic converter in their transportation bus.
The county buses got hit.
And so that's in Hood River.
Yeah, and the Dells as well.
Wow.
So, yeah,
They're making the
up
rounds.
and down the gorge.
Is there actually really money in that?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Scrap?
Scrap.
Big money.
Scrap.
Well, yeah, there's some precious metals inside that are
Mhm.
very valuable.
So the scrap bag doesn't go, where'd you get that? Never mind.
Yep, that's exactly what the scrap guy does.
Uh-huh. There's money in it for
So it's
somebody.
a good idea to engrave your VIN on the side of it, on the catalytic converter, and also put a plate over it if you can.
Oh, interesting.
Didn't have to lock your house either.
Okay, so really just wanted to kind of circle back and make sure that we heard succinctly what was on your mind. So unless there was some other thoughts, that will definitely give us some direction as we move forward. I feel so intimate. All right. Then,
Well, so I wrote the memo. It's kind of straddles all departments as far as the discussion on extension of city services. So during the retreat, we talked about the growth of the area and the growth outside of city limits. But what we didn't get to is how does the city respond to that growth outside of getting on board with the planning and ensuring that the zoning matches with the county so that when that area is annexed in, it already has, is following the city codes. And so what this part is, as far as the growth goes, is extension of services past city limits. And the discussion there is really, do we want to focus on the infrastructure that we currently have in place? Or do we want to extend that and grow it? Because we don't have the ability to do both, but also the extension wouldn't necessarily be funded by the city. Most of the time that's funded by developers. However, some of the funding mechanisms the city can use and then get reimbursed down the line if we want to intentionally grow outside of the city limits or grow the system. And some of those funding mechanisms are latecomers agreements or local improvement districts, things of that nature. And so because we already have more or less a challenge with our infrastructure, that's why the discussion is kind of important to have now. But the other aspect of it is people are also growing outside of city limits, and one of the deterrents is their ability to get water. Even in the fall, we have calls for people whose wells aren't producing enough. And so again, granted that's outside the current zone where we currently have a well proposed in the plan. And again, that's I think 20 years out, if that. And so that the current plan calls for a reservoir just not even halfway up Kanaka, and that's $4 million. Now, to get the people that are having the water troubles and to get more or less the best bang for your buck, it would be better if we got all the way up to the corner of Loop and Kanaka. And then we would also have the pressure to send that all the way down. We don't have a price tag on that. But again, does the city want to start looking at that and saving for that? Because that, while part of it would be paid for by growth, there would be a portion of it that would be paid for just by the city and the current customers in some way, shape, or form.
So as we talked about at the retreat, we did talk a lot about how accurate our crystal ball can be. How do we determine, because we do, just because, okay, we have an area that we can grow into, but then we also have a set area where we are. So there are areas within the county that we could keep an eye on that say that we would really like to move that direction, or we can say, maybe there's some areas of growth that would be easier to manage because they're easier to resources that we already have. For example, we have that little enclave on Bone Road that I'm fortunate enough to be part of. That's just a swath that is city property. Directly across the street, ironically closer to City Hall, is county property. And they don't have city water, but the city water goes right past the front door. Somebody up on Kanaka that's asking for water outside of city limits, that's a tougher pull right there. Also, going to the west of town, there's some areas that we can expand to there where we already have resources. So how aggressive do we become on making sure that the area that we can grow into, we provide for and start thinking towards growth? Or do we play it a little closer to the vest and grow slower? So I don't know, have any way to address that, aggressive or not. I would have to say that as a small city, not being super aggressive feels like the way to go. However, if there's an area that we think that we would like to have part of the city, then we should start planning for a growth plan that does include saving some funds to start adding or increasing water capacity where there isn't resources already. So the other part is, can the system as it is handle additional customers? And the other danger is, if those customers never become city residents, what have we accomplished? Having a customer is one thing, but it also feels like having additional increasing city boundaries feels like the better bonus than another, just a customer, but also a resident. But that's just my thoughts.
And I was gonna echo that it would seem like if we are going to expand, we should do it through the annexation process. That way, then you've got everybody on board with that expansion. But my question again would be to Carl is that as our infrastructure sits right now, are we capable of expanding that if I, say at the end of Maple Way, that's where the end of the sewer and the water lines run. I don't know if it is or not. But if someone was to develop further up the road, do we have the capability within that system right there to be able to add to it, to carry the load of whatever's going to be added to it? Or do we have to put in a bigger main or those kinds of things? So those are questions that run through my mind.
Yeah, and there, Dave, if I can answer, if you can hear me. Maple Way, that specific one right there, we do have customers on Maple Way within city limits. However, we don't have a correctly sized main on that road. So adding any additional ones to that one, we're going to incur some costs.
There you go.
It's just my 2 cents. I don't want to. It seems like we have unfinished business with a few of our water mains throughout town before we start adding more. But, that being said, I don't want to stifle growth either. So it kind of all comes back to what we already have in the ground and then our sources. So our water system plan showed that we do have capacity to grow into the next coming years within our urban growth boundary, within our city limits as they sit now, but also within our urban growth boundary. So yeah, that's what we got to look at. I think we need to pay attention a little bit more to the aging mains that we have. And again, that's just my 2 cents. Trying to balance that with growth is a tough one.
Yeah.
So Carl, let me ask you this. We've mentioned a couple of times that the water plan calls for adding a reservoir. Is that just, we should add one as growth happens, or does it attach a reservoir to expected growth in a particular area? Is it just a generic, there will be growth, and when that happens, we will need another reservoir? Or is it more specific that says we anticipate growth in this direction, which will require a new reservoir?
And that's more it. It depends on where the growth is at. If right now, most of our growth that we're talking about is in upper elevations, and that's why it'd require another reservoir. And that's why that was called out in the water system plan.
So, and then there's no water on Upper Frank Johns, right?
There is on Upper Frank Johns. Yeah, that's already has mains on it.
So what did we miss? Was it sewer? There was something that we were missing up there, wasn't there?
Sewer. Yeah, sewer ends on the intersection of Frank Johns and Loop Road, basically, if you're heading up Frank Johns.
All right, so I guess what I'm trying to pull out of you is, what are you city council, what are your thoughts on growth? I'm kind of thinking that if there's some infill that's closer to home, like closer to the heart of the city, that feels like a priority. To Carl's point, mains that have customers that aren't big enough, mains that are in need of repair, that feels like a way to get to some infill and make sure that our infrastructure stays solid, something that we can build on instead of overextending, which is what it kind of feels like. But also work out a plan and plan for growth and keep our eye on how that's working out so that we're prepared when the time comes. So I would love for you guys to either convince me I'm wrong, or I'm really just trying to pull some thoughts from you. Ben?
Well, just some more context too. So with the current prohibition for water, I haven't looked at the sewer one as much. So the current prohibition for water allowed certain connections if there was an existing home adjacent to an existing water line in 1981 when that was adopted. And so now there is additional, let me take one step back. And then that ordinance didn't tie any other annexation requirements to it. Many jurisdictions do have a pre-annexation agreement that goes with the connection of water. So if they get water now, they're agreeing to annex whenever the time comes to annex. And so that decision becomes a city decision instead of a city property owner negotiation at that time. Negotiation occurs through the water connection. So that's not in there right now. What is in there right now is something very strange that says that the city can discontinue water service to those homes for any reason. And that's very strange. And before we would do anything like that, we'd work with
Clean
Ken
that up. Yeah.
for something. But in the future, if we were to allow connection to either extended lines or the existing lines, what we would want to make sure is that we have that pre-annexation agreement as a condition of connection, so that it's not a discussion of we lose, the property owner loses motivation to annex in the future. They'd actually be making the decision to annex in the future.
Front loaded.
So I have a couple of questions that I need answered. Some of these properties that we're talking about are outside the city limits, meaning they're in county bounds. Is there a moratorium on wells or something?
So inside city limits, we passed an ordinance that didn't allow wells inside city limits.
Right.
So there's no moratorium on wells outside city limits. However, the aquifers and the water availability is very hit and miss.
Okay, so
in the
it's not
county.
like the county can intervene for those folks who don't live in city limits. Okay. All right, and then secondly, when you're asking about growth, when we're talking about growth, is that inclusive or exclusive of the potential R1, 2, 3 zonings issue? I mean, if we're talking about growth, I mean, if we rezone, I mean, there's a potential for incredible growth in the city limits. If we don't, then we're talking about
So you're talking about
small,
increased density.
increased
in
density.
existing city properties.
okay.
I guess, I don't mind that, you tell me.
No,
I think that's what you're saying.
yeah, so if we're going to allow additional dwellings on current city property, does that mean that those dwellings will just tap into the city line that's already there? Okay, got it. So we're talking about growth outside of this zoning.
Yeah,
Okay.
pressure is really the issue. When you get up the hill, there's just no pressure. You can't get water up there.
Yeah,
The houses down here, they have plenty of pressure because they're downhill.
right.
And
And
that's why
so
they're talking about the reservoir up at,
the top of
loop and
Kanaka
Kanaka,
Loop, yeah. Just
Well, yeah,
Pardon the pun?
It seems on the surface anyway, prudent to focus on fixing and maintaining what we have before we start adding more. Just in general. However, there might be some academic reason why that's not true. You know, I get tricked all the time on some of these things. But when it comes to the idea of saving money for a new reservoir, I don't know of anyone who's ever regretted saving money. So it's a tough thing. I think that if I had to make this decision solo, if I were the benevolent dictator sort of thing, I think that I would focus on what we've got first, knowing what we know, knowing what I know now. And unless there's some academic reason that I'm overlooking, I would focus on what we have now, fixing that up, but with the mind on, we need to save money to get a reservoir up there, up the hill somewhere, whether it's at that corner or somewhere else up the hill. You know, I feel like I'm saying we have to do both, and I guess in a sense we do. But I think there's more urgency with fixing what we've got than there is with moving forward with expansion.
And I kind of want to be clear on the saving money. So when we do our water system plan and the sewer system plan, those figures for those financial projections are rolled into the calculation for the SDC charges. So we are collecting money for new connections for that expansion of the system, which we will need at some point in time because we're adding people to the system. And so it's similar to, you know, when you connect to the sewer system, you're saving for the future growth of that sewer system because you're adding people to it.
Mhm.
And so we are saving funds, and again, that's also why we went with FacilityDo to get that predictor, to get a better idea, nuanced approach as far as deciding how we want to save for that and how much we want to save for that. I think it would be the next time we do our water system plan, the question is do we want to have them look higher versus just, I think, at Baker Road. So.
And we were lucky to do the water system plan and the sewer system plan at the same time. It was a lot of work, but it was good that they were coordinated, because when you all adopted the water system plan, the first 10 years of those financial projections that Leon was talking about were not considering that new reservoir. We're not setting aside money for that. We're setting aside money for a study, whatever. At the same time, those capital improvement plans for the sewer are focusing on extending so that we get that closer to city limits, so that maybe in the 10-year time frame when those are updated, that then you're extending water and sewer together instead of sewer being down here at City Hall at its terminus. So
This is where it would be nice to have a city street map. So you can see where the boundaries are.
Yeah, or know where the infrastructure runs.
Right,
And where,
exactly.
where it terminates at.
Right,
So
right.
you know,
Where potential growth is.
Yes.
Based on what our
Yes.
current system is set up as, what's currently how it is.
If you give me a second.
But Paul, I agree with you that, and looking further down in some of the reports that Carl has done about the water system and replacing AC lines and that are degraded and that kind of thing. At that time, we need to make sure too, as we replace those, that we are doing it in a way that will be able to maintain further growth, maybe further down the road, literally.
There's that pun again.
So that we don't replace a 4-inch line with a 4-inch line or whatever. Maybe you take a look at, okay, what's it going to take from this point on for further growth, and maybe look that route. So, yeah.
So, sorry, it's a terrible picture up there.
download,
What?
top right corner, the arrow and the down.
Oh,
And then you can zoom in for reals.
I guess too, I'm thinking about the downtown success plan. If we start thinking about adding multifamily dwellings there, I mean, that's another thing that we have to be considering also in terms of sewer and water and the infrastructure that will support whatever we're going to end up with that design.
so this dashed line, I don't know if you can see my arrow, is the city urban growth area boundary.
Okay.
And so we can't grow much more to the west.
Yes. Mhm.
We can a little bit,
I see that. Yeah.
but not much. The most growth would be to the north, and I don't have that entire map up here. I can pull that.
I see where it jogs to
But-
the west again there.
Yeah,
at the
but this
top.
is Loop Road.
Yeah.
This is Maple,
Yeah.
and then you have Frank John.
Hey
and
Ken,
Napa.
this is Courtney Shiflani. I have a call from you.
So,
Oh, no, thanks. I saw I missed a call from you
There
right
you go.
after.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, it's kind of like,
Is it Robert?
does that help?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So,
May I
so we're
Say something.
considering the top of Kanaka and Loop. Where would that be on your map there?
Tanaka and Loop?
Yeah.
Okay. It's not on my map. If you
Okay.
give me a second, I can.
It's way up.
It's
Okay.
way
Yeah,
up.
it's way
That's
up.
where Scar, Kanaka, and.
Yeah.
where the clear cut
Right.
occurred a couple
Yeah,
years ago.
yeah.
Right there at the old schoolhouse
Yeah.
location.
Yeah.
So where does city property end on Kanaka Creek?
Very close to the intersection of the proper road, so there's.
Oh, right.
Two
So just past my
properties.
house. Okay. And, how many residents do we have there now? On Kanaka Creek, outside of city property after Loop Road? Does anybody know? And is there a lot of available land there?
A lot of available land and a lot of growth going on right now.
Yeah, right. I know there's a lot of growth, so I was wondering how much available land there is still. Okay.
Plenty.
And
May I say something?
Go ahead.
So just looking
Go
at Liana's memo, I think the first decision to make is really, do we want to extend services without annexation? And it sounds like the answer to that is no, but I don't know if we need more discussion on that. My 2 cents on that is that I would rather have folks in the city limit with annexation, and we've liked some of the tools that Ben has talked about in the past for that. And so maybe that becomes the first thing that's decided before looking at, well, what areas and how does the infrastructure lay out? Because I feel like we can ask staff to present options if we decide that we want some to plan for future growth. But the first question is, I think, whether or not we're interested in that. So I'm interested in having the city staff prepare some options for, reasonable, easy growth. And Scott made some suggestions already that sound like they make sense. But I'm not interested in extending services to just have a customer and to not have somebody within the city limit. That feels, I don't know, less prudent to me.
so it sounds like what Paul was saying is let's take care of what we already have first.
Yes.
But we have easy targets on infill that would be really easy to extend services to, that feels like managed growth and ease by increments instead of overextending,
Right.
either accidentally or gambling on purpose.
Yeah, I think that taking the piecemeal approach, I think that's kind of what you're talking about.
But then keeping in mind that Liana says we are saving money on purpose, it's built into the plan. And then when the time comes, there's that money that we can say, all right, now it's time. There's the growth that we've been waiting for. There's the interest in annexation. This is the time.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Robert?
I think we're gonna grow at some point. We need to be ready for it. Ben, what does planning say?
This one's led by you guys. They were gonna be available to comments on some of the specifics, but this one's led by you guys first. The comprehensive plan anticipates development in that area, and it anticipates it occurring on city water and sewer.
And so Ben might be able to help me better. I'm not able to get the urban growth boundary on this map, but this is the city limits.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, if you scroll down on the right-hand side and click zoning plus, you can sort of see where there's a difference in colors, but it's hard to interpret. So-
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That makes all the difference in the
Yeah,
world.
so the purple, there we go.
Sarcasm much?
Purple, that's the right color.
Fuchsia, maybe?
Yeah, fuchsia. I'd go with
Fuchsia,
fuchsia.
that's it, fuchsia. Is outside, and then where it's got that kind of dark blue teal,
Yeah,
that's all
greenish.
in,
Okay.
So the blue and the green and this yellow
yeah.
are all inside the urban growth.
So
But what does the blue and the green and yellow mean?
It's
Oh.
current county zoning.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
5 acre, 2 acre, 1 acre.
okay, got it.
I'm hearing 4 options. Can I help you guys structure?
Yeah, please.
Okay, I'm hearing 4 options. No change, status quo. Allow connection to existing lines outside the city limits. Extend beyond existing lines, subject to an pre-annexation agreement. Or extend anywhere without annexation considered.
And
I
I
don't
would
know if
take,
number 4. What's that, Robert?
I know, Ben, I would take the first one off, and now you're down to 3. And we got to do something, so I think number 1's
You always
off.
have
Let's
to
just
agree
rename
with
it.
Yeah, I think the existing lines, if it's an easy connection, yeah. I mean, number 2, that seems like low hanging fruit to me. And I think if we do extend, I agree with Amy that that should be part of the annexation process.
Can
I
I,
don't like.
oh, sorry.
Again, go ahead.
Well, I know that Ben was talking about a pre-annexation agreement. Ben, do you mean like a waiver of remonstrance?
It could be both, but so a waiver of remonstrance would have them also agreeing to pay for proportionate share for the reservoir. So the details of that pre-annexation agreement could still need to be worked out, and you can include the waiver of remonstrance as part of the actual annexation. So
Right, just so that the council understands what we mean by waiver of remonstrance. That's sort of a middle ground that says to the property owner that if there at some point in the future becomes a petition for annexation, you cannot object. You're not allowed to object at any point in the future to an annexation petition to, get out of that 60% requirement. So that isn't, I don't hate to throw that in, but that is another option available. And, and what Ben's talking about also is, that could be part of a pre-annexation agreement. So anyway, I don't want to belabor the point, but just thought I'd throw that in. Some cities do that.
Hey, Ken, just a query on that. That gets recorded and runs with the land, right? It's not just the
Yes,
individual
indeed.
owner that's
Yep.
present.
Yep.
Okay.
It runs with the land.
And as I say with this always, it's not something that's unique. It's not something that we'd be inventing. That's something that exists for all counties and cities in Oregon. That's a situation that exists for all the fast growth large counties in Washington because the states require that. We're just not required to do it. But there's
Is it,
plenty of
does it become a hindrance to potential landowners?
It depends on how people view whether or not they're inside city limits.
Right.
I think right now your property taxes are lower if you're inside city limits. So
State that again.
your property taxes are lower if you're inside city limits. So
There's
Yeah.
a common conception that your taxes go up when you annex into city limits. That's not true. Where that often comes into place is that in the annexation agreements, there's a local improvement district that happens at the same time to get the sidewalk up to you, to get the utility services up to you. And that increases your property taxes for that short period of time. So that's where that conception is that your property taxes go up, but it's dependent on each annexation and what's necessary there, so.
So as is noted here, we're not making any solid decisions here tonight. Really just wanted to get the conversation started. And like I like to say, keep our heads up about what we're trying to do so that when it comes to a crossroads, we've been
Surprised.
thinking about
Yeah.
what we're gonna do.
Right. Well, we're gonna be proactive. That's our goal.
Just the last
That's our goal.
3 years, we've been working on proactive growth.
That's fantastic.
So I think, while we're not looking for action, I think staff is looking for direction on whether or not to pursue any of these, or I think, yeah, like Ben laid out, or do you just want to status quo?
I recommend if it's, we allow people to connect to lines if the line's available for them to connect to, whether they're in city limits or not.
I need to add to that. I'm sorry. It gets a little complicated, Paul. If we've got water lines, just like we mentioned before, that Dave mentioned, we have water lines that go by houses, that go by vacant properties that are in the county. But let's say, you know, we go ahead and say, yeah, you can hook up if you have a water main by your property. A lot of those mains are undersized. So I don't even know how we would draft that up to say, I guess we could say, yeah, you can hook up if the water line is adequately sized for the additional impact you have on the system. It's just kind of, there are some unique areas in town that have water going by them, but not properly sized.
Got it.
And another thing is we'd be adding structures without proper fire protection.
And so maybe that can go along with the agreement to annex, is that if that line or when that line has to be upgraded, they have to pay a proportional share of it because they're not inside city limits.
To tap into it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So for example, if the line doesn't necessarily need to be upsized for them because they're the last person that can be on the line, but their neighbor across the street's inside city limits, they just haven't built yet. When they build, they're going to have to the line's going to have to be upsized, but it should be on, I guess, trying to make a consideration for the person that's already inside city limits and trying to work that out somehow.
So if water is extended to that person that's in county limits, and then they annex in, it's just covered. But if the main needs to be upgraded, does everybody have to pay for that?
Well, it depends on what agreement we have.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And does annexing mean you're just annexing in for those services? It doesn't mean you are now a city resident, right?
It means you're a city resident.
Okay, so
Annexation
that affects
means-
voting
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
okay, and their ability to engage politically for elected positions, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
Okay.
And our tax structure.
Tax structure,
all that.
everything.
What a shell game.
Yeah.
Right, right? Yeah.
Holy cow.
Okay, so, but I think it still comes down to Amy's question. Water customers outside city limits, yes, no. Because if you say, I guess there's no, and then there's not no, depends. How far out,
Yes,
how far,
yes,
how,
but.
how far outside the service are you?
Yeah,
Is there, will you be maxing out a system for potential customers that are in city limits? So
right.
that's what it feels like, no, and maybe not no.
Could we say so long as they pay for all the upgrades necessary? You know, that you.
Yeah, and yet they're financially responsible for tapping in.
Yeah, for example, if of course you'd have to pay to go the pipe from your house to the main. Of course, you have to pay for that.
Yeah.
But if there were other upgrades necessary, increasing the size of the pipe or whatnot, sure, you can connect, but you're going to have to upgrade that whole pipe as well, and it's probably out of your.
No, you can't do that. That's the Nolan Dolan nexus problem. And you have to have rough proportionality between the impact of their development and what they would need to pay. So it would be lovely if you could just say, well, you have to upgrade the whole line, but that's considered a takings under the United States Constitution per the United States Supreme Court. So you gotta tailor it. The amount of the impacts that they pay cannot exceed the impacts of their particular property and development to our system. So there are limitations.
Okay.
Good to know. So in that case, then, I think I would be even more leaning toward, let's just take care of the systems we currently have, upgrade them as they need to be upgraded. Just have this in the back of our mind. And in a, you know, in the next 2 or 3 years is when we're going to see a lot of this development, you know, filling in on these properties that are currently vacant. And we might have a better idea what we need to do and where we need to focus our efforts at, you know, when we kick the can down the road a few years.
Well, and the planning commission will probably be discussing water and sewer extensions, things like that, as they take a look at those developments, correct?
Right.
If
Okay,
those
so-
developments are in city limits.
Right.
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 Here's a perfect example, or I don't know if it's a perfect example of what. We were looking at repaving, what was it, repaving the other half of Loop? Wasn't that what it was? Tearing off Loop
From here to
Frank John's.
Right.
Well, while it was stripped down anyway, we may as well, there was some water line that needed to be replaced. Well, if there's a big hole in the ground, why wouldn't we put sewer in there where there isn't sewer now, which would automatically open up a property that isn't big enough for a septic system and would love to be our next customer. And that would be something that we would do anyway, because it makes sense because there's a hole in the ground.
Right.
Didn't necessarily plan for it, but why wouldn't you?
Right.
Right.
So those are the sorts of things that I think that we need to be receptive to when they come up without being super aggressive about adding customers that aren't residents.
Yes.
Yeah, kind of a case by case basis, but that makes absolute sense. I mean, to me, we've got that hole open. Why wouldn't you do all these things, or underground cable or whatever it's going to be?
Mhm.
Kind of like we experienced on Russell.
Okay, let me try to get that direction from you guys as a group now. So
Good luck.
Yeah.
either no change, leave it alone, or bring you guys a staff report that includes some options about how to move forward, and it'll be structured a lot like planning commission kickoff reports for establishing your public involvement program and overall policy review. What option A or option B?
I like the.
B.
Yeah.
But is that enough clarity for you guys? I mean, is that?
Did you hear us though? I mean, like, did
I
you hear
know.
enough? I guess that's what I did. Did you hear enough of what we said?
To help you make, yeah, to give you a direction. Okay.
And staff recommendations are more than welcome.
It's tough, and Carl
Yeah.
it touches on it all the time too at staff meetings, that we've got the water rights, we've got a pretty good system and not a lot of barriers around. That well issue that we're dealing with right now might impact the total water we have, and so that's going to be something that we'll really talk about if we do move toward this.
Okay.
And Carl, we do appreciate it when you go, hang on. So appreciate that input.
Yeah, just full disclosure. I mean, and there are other properties where we have large transmission mains running through houses that running through streets that are in the county. So in those instances, it feels horrible to tell landowners, no, you can't hook up to that main that's right in front of your driveway. So yeah, it's a juggling act.
Yeah.
Are you guys ready to move on?
Yep.
Okay.
Leon?
So I tried to pare down this as best as possible without stripping it completely from the smart aspect of it. And I did update the timelines with the vision of this goal list is actually for 2022 and 2023. And so I tried to kind of change it to what we're doing
right now.
Then, what we're in the process of planning for next year. And so it is pared down to, I guess, 2 pages. And then I kept the completed goals in there for the next 3 pages, just so we know sort of what was moved from the original one. And completed is completed in some way, shape, or form. So, yeah. The order of things, again, as we discussed, hasn't really changed. And
even number 5 would help us with what we just talked about, you know, developing a deliberate growth strategy. We'll know then what we need to do with our water system.
And that will then inform the capital improvement program
Right.
and, yeah.
Liana, is part of that number 5, the concept of layering maps on top of each other of these different infrastructure pieces to try to figure some of that out? Like that, I know that's a
Yeah,
super-
it is. And so, yeah, and in recently doing it, you know, we saw a street project that was happening before a water line project, I think, in one area of town. And so it already kind of has paid off, and that we'll switch that. And while this isn't, we're waiting for the transportation study, because the street construction kind of drives a lot of this as well, as far as what improvements need to be made to make sure that we can try to line up, again, doing everything all at once if we have to. So at the next meeting, we're going to have our first public hearing for our transportation improvement program. We might change some dates, but all the projects in there are going to be the same as from prior years, knowing that we're coming up with this larger project by the, I think the timeline is in September. And so just kind of knowing that going in, we can have discussions as far as how we want to see it change. But we want to keep these projects on this list, especially the ones that we know about, just in case we can apply for funding. I mean, there was the $2 or $3 trillion bill that's coming down the pipeline. I mean, if the state gets all that money for transportation and then sends it down to the cities, we want to make sure that we at least have that project on our transportation improvement plan so that we can apply for funding. Because if it's not on our plan, we can't apply. So again, just knowing that going in, we are trying to layer everything, and we're waiting for the transportation study to figure out the final timeline and some costs, but we are working on that and have it all kind of laid out and grouped together. So far, it still looks messy, but we're working on it.
So when I'm looking at these top 5 goals for 22 and 23, how are we integrating these into our conversations as a council during our meetings to make certain that they're staying on top of our order? You know what I'm saying? Just like, so the downtown planning, the downtown corridor will be thoughtfully planned. Well, when? Right? I mean, how do we bring that to the, you know, how do we take it from this piece of paper and actually make it a project we're working on?
So one point of that is it's included in the project updates that we provide as far as where we're going with each of these. And so that the number on that project update corresponds to the number on here. And so that's one way that you're kind of, because not all of these make movement between each meeting. But for the downtown planning, it also goes to, I mean, the First Street Overlook project. So we make decisions on that or presentations on that. You know, Columbia realignment, the wastewater project, and then working on aesthetic improvements. And so I think one thing that I did change was, you know, right now, as far as the downtown planning, the parking issue is how that's addressed with the downtown planning. I put for next year, looking at the aesthetic improvements as far as ordinances for derelict properties or vacant properties. So that's kind of how it plays out. And I can try to see when I put the agenda together, if I can kind of highlight the goal that
is aligned with. Yeah. I think that's a great
Yeah.
idea, because I mean, I don't know about all of you, but I'll bet every single person in this room can say that they've worked someplace before, or they've been on some board where, you know, they have all these wonderful ideas, but 12 years later, guess what? Nothing is still done.
Well, so let me help with this. We had our first retreat, 3 years ago? And it was a thing that staff really appreciated because they didn't know what city council wanted.
Right.
And then every once in a while, they were surprised when city council goes, what gives? Why did you spend time on that? So this was an opportunity to say, you know, have a discussion, identify some things that sifted out or floated to the top, and that gave staff direction. So that is a direct result of this plan. So
That's fantastic.
even though we don't address it every day or every month, it is every day here at
Right.
City Hall, because
Right.
this is the direction we've given staff.
I think for, because it's so important to us to have more transparency with the community too, that if we can align these, say, okay, this project that we're working now is a direct representation of what we outlined, as number 2.
Mhm.
So they can see that correlation taking place and that they understand that, these are the reasons why we're working on these projects, because
Mhm.
we said it was really important to us.
So yeah, to flip what you said, how are we sure that this is happening? This is happening because, or that what happens here at City Hall every day happens because of this.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yep. But let's let our residents know that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I did put the project status updates on the website, so it's like the first highlighted
Yeah.
bar. And so I'm gonna try, again, when we do our page update,
Mhm.
it'll be easier to reach as well.
That's awesome. Good. Thank you.
I think too, Liana, I don't know if it's up there, but you have in here the completed goals and with your notes, that's super awesome as well to share, like as part, I don't know if it's part of this document, that's the part is online or not, but that'd be great feedback for people.
Yeah, because you think about this, you got your remaining uncompleted goals, there's only 5. And you look at the ones that we have completed, it's 2
Pretty
pages.
impressive.
It's pretty impressive.
And our constituents need to know that.
Right,
They
They
need to
that-
know
yeah.
that City Hall just isn't sitting there doing nothing.
Right.
Mhm.
Not that they think that, but
Some do.
I think some do, yeah.
Some people need some help figuring out what to do. But
And so, and like I said, so some of these, I do want to highlight some of these that are down under completed, are completed or maybe morphed. So, for example, the unimproved street plan, I put that it may be rolled into the citywide traffic study, and the traffic study is in process. So in this goal,
Yes, yeah.
this is again 2022 to 2023, and so it's anticipating that the 2021 goal will be wrapped up. So I just
Right.
want to have that caveat that when people are looking at this, not completed yet, it's still in process, but the
Right.
goal is to be completed by 2022.
Right, got it. I think that's awesome.
I think it's awesome too.
All right.
I'll make a motion to approve this document as presented.
second,
Ooh,
I think-
toss.
I think Dave's got in there. just
Okay, yeah, I did hear his voice over mine, so. Dang.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Robert,
Aye.
Amy? Aye?
Say
I need-
me again.
Yes,
Can I hear
I,
your vote? Thank
I,
you. Amy, tell us about the blue curtain behind you.
what's behind the curtain? I'm traveling. All the,
Like
all
your
the,
dedication?
all the panels.
Okay.
curtain number 1.
Well, I was sitting back going, okay, where is Amy?
Right.
Where is Amy?
I got a living vehicle.
All right, Carl.
Okay.
Is it Carl?
Apologize, I
There we
gotta
go.
find Ben Shoemaker on there. I see council business. Where am I at, Scott?
Oh, so you're, Clark County
Clark County and.
agreement.
8A.
Interlocal agreement.
Okay, that
Basically,
that interlocal was mainly needed to be updated. We use Clark County for striping our roads. They contacted me just letting me know that that needed to be updated, but it's an interlocal like any other interlocal. We can use them, they can use us. So that is why that is in front of you to get approved and be updated. But just to let council know, we do use Clark County for striping, and so does Skamania County. So we try to coordinate that with the county at the same time. And that's
So
why
Carl, we talked briefly about this a couple of weeks ago. Is the timing going to be better this year? Like, are we going to get new stripes
Yes.
before the summer season?
So if they did not stripe last year due to COVID, I'm assuming they are going to do it this year, and not only the city of Stevenson, but the county also requested that we do it a little earlier. The last time we did it and the time before, it ended up being almost into fall. So the paint doesn't dry as fast as it should, so you get a lot of wet paint and cars going through it.
Well, and the town doesn't look as crisp as it should for our customer, or for our visitors
visitors.
during the summer season.
We do, they have other larger customers, so we just need to make a bigger stink about it, which both myself and the county did the last time they paid, or the last time they striped. So we'll get it sooner than October. I know that. So.
All right, and then we'll coordinate that with our crew on the parking stripes.
Yeah, so the parking stripes we do because they're thermoplastic that we just melt down. In that we basically do those as time allows and weather.
I'll pat Carl on the back with with the striping too. 2 years ago, I think was the first time he was managing that. When the Clark County crew came in, he had them on streets depending on when the traffic was on the street,
Wow,
so that people weren't driving through wet paint, or were less likely to drive through wet paint. So that
attention
was
to
something
detail.
that was-
That's awesome.
We had a pile of signs out too, almost at a ridiculous amount, but little extra effort. I want to say it was the first year in a long time we never got any wet paint on my vehicle complaints. So we'll try to keep that up. But, even doing all of that, if, that paint should be drying literally within minutes. If the weather's not there, if the sun's not out, it doesn't dry like that. So it's really, really tough to keep people out of it.
And if you don't have a rookie crew laying it on too thick or driving too slow.
Yeah, yep. Always challenges.
Oh, that's funny.
All right, I would entertain a motion.
What number is this?
8A.
Motion to approve the interlocal agreement with Clark County not to exceed $50,000 per calendar year as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Amy?
Frozen.
She's frozen.
It must be really cold.
Well, that passes
Yeah,
regardless of which way. she
Even if she
goes.
says no.
Oh,
There's
she's
she
trying. She's trying.
All right. Motion carries.
Aye.
There we go. Leon?
So waiver back billing request. This is, I don't know if you recall, last year Mercedes Lux, I think, had the same issue. And this one was recently caught as well. And so when a customer has a low income rate and there's a property sale, we didn't catch that it was a low income rate with the property sale. And so when we do finally catch it, we back bill the difference. And so this one, it was 15 months. Because due to COVID, the Attorney General relaxed some of the restrictions around a gifting of public funds because this is assistance due to COVID related impacts to the customer, which they included in the packet as far as the rationale. And so that's why it's coming forward to you as far as a request to waive the, and it's a corrected amount of the $822.83 is what it totals.
So I have a question. Do we know when Mr. Johnson contacted the county or contacted the city and let them know that he purchased the land and the water had to be switched over to him?
It would have been 15 months ago. And the challenge with all of this though, is when you get your bill, you don't see what rate you're getting, you just see the dollar amount. So you don't know that you're getting a low income senior rate, you just see a lower.
Okay.
You just see, and especially if you haven't been a city resident
So
before.
it's basically the city's fault that Okay.
Right.
So what mechanism are we working on to prevent this, especially when we don't get to hide under COVID?
Right,
Whatever.
so going forward, and this was, again, so since the Mercedes, you know, it was, we have a process now to make sure that when they're getting charged, it's the correct rate when the property sells. Again, so this one wasn't caught, and I'd have to check with, to see what process caught this one.
Yeah,
But-
where did it work? Yeah.
Right.
What worked?
So, but we'll do an audit as well of all of the senior rates,
Mhm.
because they're supposed to be updated regularly.
Regularly.
So we could potentially catch more then, but hopefully that would be,
Because typically around, we try to time it with tax season, because then people have all their financial information from the prior
Right.
year, and so you
Yeah.
can then apply for aid. We partner with the county on that, so we direct people to senior services, because not only would they get a lower rate for the city, but there's other services that they can get, either a rate break on or other assistance as well.
How does the public know that these programs exist?
good question.
So I know with the rate, WAGAP has a large pool of money that can be leveraged for rate assistant or utility payments, but also rental payments and things of that nature. And they've been putting ads in the newspaper. When we do any programs like our home rehabilitation program, we put ads in the paper. There's flyers around. I tell people that these programs exist. I don't know what this county does as far as encouraging engagement.
Is this something that we can put on our Facebook page or our website?
Yeah, and I believe we also have information on our website about services that are available,
Okay.
and with links especially to the county site.
And I guess, you know, as people are continuing to struggle because of COVID, it would be nice to have those kinds of services front and center so they know that they're there. And I know that we do, like on our water payments and things, we'll put special messages on there as well. So it would be kind of nice to have it maybe on Facebook for a couple of weeks or once a month or something like that, just so people are seeing it.
Now,
And of course, the website.
when we were looking at the franchise agreement for WAVE, we were trying to institute a low income rate. And weren't we going to try to tie it to the PUD bill? Wasn't that the mechanism that we were going to use, something like that? Does that sound familiar?
I forget.
An announcement kind of
Well, it
thing?
was like, okay, so we wanted to have low income rates for cable service. So
Right.
how are we going to,
How are we gonna
it's already
communicate
being
that?
vetted.
Yeah.
PUD has a vetting process. Let's just say, well, the PUD said I'm low income.
Oh,
Can I
got
do low
it.
income for
Got
you
it.
too?
Got it. Yeah, exactly. I get it.
Instead of saying, okay, well, here's my income statement for the PUD.
Right.
All right, well, for the city water, we're going to need to have, okay, here we go again.
Right, to do it all, yeah. Mhm.
Does the PUD do the same thing for the senior rate?
Well, I don't know, is it senior or just low income?
Well, I don't know. I have to check.
I didn't even know the city had a senior rate.
It's
How old do you have to be?
well, no, let me clarify. It's senior low income.
Oh, okay,
Yes,
all right.
yes. So that's
So
why.
it's not or,
Yeah, that's not,
Okay.
senior or,
right.
Yeah.
We also added disability as well.
Oh,
So if you're on social security disability.
Okay, good.
okay, back to the matter at hand. I would entertain a motion.
Are we on Michael Johnson?
Yes. 8E.
Okay, I make a motion to waive the back billing charges for Michael Johnson in the amount of $822.83.
Second,
So the first and the second, is there any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Amy? Still frozen. Robert?
Aye.
You got an aye.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Liana?
Okay, so recently we had a customer request a light shade for the new lights that we have. And so at the end of, or in 2018, 2019, all the street lights were upgraded to LEDs as part of a Relight Washington grant. And so our old policy and code still had the prices that were fixed, but also referenced the shades for the older style lamps, and hasn't been updated. And the costs vary, and so we just want to make sure that we're receiving compensation for just the cost of what it takes to install one of those light shades on a request basis. And so this policy change takes out any reference to what type of fixture you're getting or what type of thing. It just says you'll pay the cost of the material and the labor to install the shade.
Whatever that costs.
Whatever that cost comes out to be. And we let them know ahead of time before ordering anything as well, so.
What range is that cost?
We don't know because we haven't had to buy one yet. And so I know that they were looking into it earlier in the week. I haven't heard back if they've found out what the cost is yet.
The old ones were a couple $100, weren't they?
So what is this anyway?
It's the shade that goes on the hood of the light to keep it from shining into your house. or
I want one of
something.
those.
Well, we'll have a cost schedule for you shortly.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Fantastic.
Some people like to just hang a plastic bucket up there. but-
Because you gotta get
Are
that
you
thing
serious?
just so.
Does that happen? Yeah, right.
So is there any reason why 3 or 4 houses who would benefit from one of these shades couldn't pitch in?
No, they can all share it. Yeah, there's nothing against that.
Oh,
It's
I know.
just The city just wants to be reimbursed for the cost of it, so yeah.
But does that also detract from the safety and the security that the light provides? Does it diminish the light so much that it's now a dark spot on
It's
the
actually better
sidewalk?
in my
or-
experience because it
But
focuses it.
right.
Oh,
It's
so
just
it's
not
drilled
on,
down.
it just doesn't go to your house.
Got it.
So you
Oh,
would
that's
have less
fantastic.
light in your driveway, so I don't know.
No, it doesn't
Right.
hit our driveway.
Okay.
It hits our bedroom window.
Right.
So you won't be able to see in the middle of the night anymore.
They do make shades.
Well, I know, but.
I would move to approve resolution 2021-378, revising the light shade. fee.
And I'm gonna second that thing.
Oh, and I just, there were some minor Scrivener's changes that Ken had made that I didn't
Yeah.
update the packet for, so anyway.
It's not these, there's something in addition to this?
No, in the whereas clause.
Okay, got it,
It
okay.
just, yeah, some pluralization stuff, so.
All right.
First and a second, any other discussion?
I'm so excited about
I have
electric.
I have a question.
I'll just let you know how much it costs tomorrow.
All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Robert?
I think Amy had a question.
Oh, sorry, Amy.
That's
She's got her
okay.
hand up.
I'm just wondering, at one point, there was some discussion about the fact that those lights are a very different brightness and shade of light. Like it's completely not, they were supposed to match what's there and they really don't match what's there. I don't know if we just said, okay, this is the way it turned out, or if anybody's working on that.
Yeah, my recollection is that we asked Eric at the time to install the warmest color available. And he assured me that he had. And I believe there's also a dimmer on them. So if it's too bright, you can ask the city to just turn it down a little bit. Or turn it up.
Yes and no. I think what Amy's referring to is that as lights are being replaced, like if a truck takes out an existing LED, or takes out the entire post, the lights that are being replaced from the same company are coming back brighter.
Right.
And also the lights that went down Russell are from the same supplier and came in brighter than the other ones. There is a way, and correct me if I'm wrong, Carl, yes, you can dim them, but you might void the warranty. So here's your brighter light, but if you try to fix it, you don't get to fix it.
That's correct. And this is an ongoing string of emails between our engineer that we used for the Russell project and Halophane, the manufacturer of the streetlights. And so far, that's about the only answer that we got is we think you may be able to dim them, but we also think that it might void the warranty if you do. And again, we're working on that. But Amy, are those the lights that you're talking about? Or are you talking about all of the LEDs throughout the town?
Those are the ones that went in on that Russell Street project, which are super bright.
Yeah, they are bright. Those are the ones that we're working on it.
Okay, so yeah, I just don't want to lose sight of that. And so we're buying replacements from this same company. So the replacement lights will be like the Russell Street lights on 2nd Street if we need to replace on 2nd Street.
if it's an entire light, they've changed where it's not just a simple unscrew a light bulb and put back in. It's a ballast, if you will. And that's just what they've gone to. So it's a further discussion. It's a long discussion between not only our engineer, but it was a separate engineering firm, lighting firm that spec'd out those lights. So there's a, you know, you got to share that burden between everybody who spec those out, and those are the ones we've got. So that's what we're going back and forth with. Now, anyone that's being replaced throughout different parts of town, we now kind of know not to spec that one, if you will. So yeah, if they're being replaced, I think we could still go to the warmer hue, if you will. I believe that's the right terminology. But the ones on Russell are the ones that we got, and we'll see if we can dim those.
Okay, I don't want to hold up this contract, but I don't want to lose sight of that because I do think it's I think it's worth spending a little bit of time on that to get it fixed if we can. Thanks.
Copy.
So,
Yeah, don't deny me my shade, Amy.
aye or nay? Okay. Ben?
Okay, we have a short plat application at the corner of Mondo Road and Rock Creek Drive. This is where you see all the very large boulders that have been unearthed there. The plat has received conditional approval. One of the conditions was resolving a right-of-way issue that looks like a series of honest mistakes over time that looked like it was included in this property, but should have been excluded. So the way they have chosen to resolve that is to deed that property to the city or dedicate that property to the city so that they know and we know exactly where the Mondo Road right-of-way is adjacent to their property. So staff is not able to accept right-of-way dedication, only the city council is, and it's put to you to accept that and get this short plat that much closer to final approval.
So a question then, looking at the map, the little triangle that's sitting right there at Mondo Road, are we talking about just the little triangle between the north point and the south point?
Correct.
Just this part that goes out over Mondo Road?
Correct.
Okay, got it. Cool.
So you're asking city council to accept more property?
Yep.
Okay.
What are we gonna do with it?
Right away. Continue to drive on.
Drive on.
And it doesn't cost us anything,
Yeah.
right?
A little bit of your time.
Cool.
Well, motion to accept the Mondo Road right of way as presented.
Second.
First and a second, any other discussion? Sorry, Amy. I got you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Amy?
Aye.
Robert? You frozen? Can you hear us?
It's freezing, yeah.
Amy just said, "Hi, guys."
I'm looking for you, man.
I'm waiting for you. You're not saying my name. First you're saying everybody, then you're doing the individual roll call. You're throwing a wrench in the game.
What are you new?
Hey.
All right.
You're doing it different tonight.
All right. So we actually just had, this is what we met about today, yeah, Ben?
Yep.
So because of the new, help me with this. So because we've changed parking requirements, that in order to keep it fair for businesses that have added outdoor seating, this resolution allows the mayor to say, you do not have to have the additional parking because you have outdoors because of this pandemic. We're not going to pinch you because of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this boils down to.
I'd move to approve resolution 2021-379, ratifying the emergency parking declaration.
Second?
First and a second, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Amy?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Thank you, Robert.
I just said aye. I can see everybody.
I didn't hear you say aye, so I just want to make sure you're on the record registering your vote.
I'm saying aye as loud as I can. I'm waiting for the neighbor in the hotel room to come in here.
I'm hearing every other word so far, so. You're killing me.
Fair enough.
We do have some informational items in your packet. The Chamber has provided some, their updates, their activities for March. Then we have project status updates from staff.
Do you want to go through them?
Oh,
The slide?
That's what it made
Or
it
do you
look
want to
like.
do the?
No, that's
staff report?
fine.
Oh, no, it's asterisk because I updated it.
Gotcha.
Ah,
Yeah,
All right. Sheriff's report's in your packet, financial report, and the fire department report. Now we get to reports. More reports, Carl. I'm Ben.
Okay. Yeah, it's super confusing on my end here. All right, the Higwald well, we touched on that a little bit. Ben did. So the scope of that project was to find out what we would need to treat for if we were to move that well status from seasonal use to permanent. What we found was we'd have to treat for pH, which we knew going into it. But we'd also have to treat for iron, which was a little bit of a surprise. So we've got that question answered. Now, as part of the scope of that project, and then that'll be the end of the project. I asked the engineer if they could come up with a fee or a cost rather, of what it would cost to do those, to treat for pH and iron. We'll have those answers, and then that'll help us better move into the future, whether we should use that source or find another one. So again, that work is done. I'm waiting on the final cost analysis of the treatment. Crew will be working on 5 new water taps going in here probably in the next couple of weeks. So that's just for this month. And when I say water taps, it's not just putting in meters, it's tapping into the main. So it's going to take up some time. But again, getting back to the growth, this is happening quite often. So Rock Creek lift station and force main goes out to bid still late this month, as touched on earlier. 17th of May, there was a grant that Evergreen Rural Water got. We were a member of them for education. They provide training to get our CEUs in both wastewater and water. They received a grant to do energy audits. The wastewater treatment plant, I felt, was pretty much taken care of with the upgrades. This audit is free to us. So we're going to focus on the water treatment plant. And basically what they do is really look at the pumps, anything that's using a lot of energy, see if we can upgrade, see what needs to be done there. It's free. I took advantage of it. So we'll see where that goes. Not only at the wastewater treatment plant, but also at our booster stations where we have 3 pumps. Those are the heavy hitters. Still working on extending a water main on Vancouver, what I would call lower Vancouver or the west end of Vancouver. Some development there, and we don't have a water main in front of the property. So going to seek bids for that. The crew has been busy trying to get certifications. We've got 1 crew member that received a certification for his water treatment plant operator, which was really hard to do in the age of COVID. He got that done. He'll be striving for his next certification within the next couple of months. The rest of the crew, including myself, have been doing what we call CEU grabbing, which is continuing education units. This is a reporting year, a growth period of 3 years that is ending this year. So we need to have all of our CEUs prior to December 31st. So it's a bit of a scramble. And that's my update.
Carl, I got a question, on the development on Vancouver, is that in that, that hole there next to Dog and Cats?
So that's proposed. I haven't really seen anything yet, but that same developer owns or purchased some lots that were already established as taxable lots just to the west of that and on the, what I would call the north side of Vancouver. It's where Red used to live. I knew him as Red. There's one single house there. As of last week, he's proposing 2 4-plexes.
Wow, that's awesome. So where does the water line run right now, the main?
So Lasher has a newer ductile iron main that comes down and then ties in to an old undersized 4-inch AC main. So we would be, what I drew up is to head east in front of Rock Creek Apartments. I'd like to upsize that line there and then head as far west as just shy of the county shops right there. And then that would serve all of that property.
And get rid of all that AC.
Yeah, we'd be getting rid of that. And that's, again, it's kind of a balancing act. We identified getting rid of AC lines as a goal. So it marks off that goal. But again, we are adding infrastructure. This one's a little bit different in the fact that there's no boundary line adjustments made. These are lots that were already there. It just happened to not have a water main in front of it. The house that's there is being served kind of in a funky way via a line that goes through the county shops and then by Ron Shippey's house down there. So it's not adequate for future growth.
Thank you.
Okay, well, the real Ben, stand up.
The live action Ben.
Yeah. Rock Creek Drive stormwater, we had a false start on Monday. We will be retesting the next Monday. Going in tomorrow to make sure we've got all the bottles we need and the protocols. Underwood Conservation District's water quality expert is helping with that. So we've got the third-party assistance, just giving honest information and helping us analyze the results once they come in.
Is Mr. Patton going to be there?
He's been invited. I believe he's got his own sampling protocol that he wants help with. And so we'll offer to help with that. Again, my approach to all this has been, we're bringing facts to a situation where there's just been conjecture before. Is it polluted? Is it a natural occurring thing? We'll bring facts to it. I don't have a plan to follow up on any of those facts after. And so once we bring those facts to you, we'll be asking for your guidance on that. Because we don't have a water quality program, because we don't have any regulations for water quality, it's really more likely that we'll be dealing with the county as the property owner and the State Department of Ecology in the event of unacceptable pollutants, if there are any. So
What's the timeline for the test completion?
I don't know.
They don't say.
Yeah, but they turn it around pretty fast. That's the same testing company that does our weekly sewer testing. So they'll turn it around. Our ability to analyze it will be dependent a lot on the UCD and their ability to help me with that. So
So then I was speed reading that email chain that came out, and I saw somewhere that you had written that your comment was something along the lines of that's more than the city council had earmarked for that project. Is that are we on a financial shortfall on this project?
When you all gave your swag number, it was $1,000.
Yeah, we just
And-
pulled that out of
yeah.
thin air.
And so the first estimates that were sent to us were for soil sampling in 2 locations, one above the suspected seep and one below it, and water sampling in 2 locations also. We limited it to just the water sampling at the one location, and it's just above 1,000
Okay.
for it. So.
So we're good for now.
If we, again, it's going to be dependent on you. So if there are pollutants of concern that are found and you
Right.
want to verify where it's at, you can allocate more money toward that, or we can just try to squeeze the actual regulators
Okay.
to do something.
Sounds good.
Anything else?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Thanks for your patience on that too.
Well, thank you for yours. Residential rezoning issues largely is going to reset. Planning Commission heard again that the public involvement effort wasn't robust enough. We've got some volunteers from the community offering to help with that, to evaluate zone changes. It may end up then growing in scope. So there was a lot of talk about, well, if additional units are designed right, then it shouldn't be a problem at all. And right now we don't have any sort of design controls other than your setbacks, other than your building height and lot coverage. So if that becomes a conversation, it's not tweaking existing, it's a whole new process that I don't have scoped out as far as how we would proceed. We'll see where that goes, but as stated, it's largely reset as we move forward there. So I don't think that will be coming to you next month as I thought that it would before. But we'll see at what point it comes to the city council.
One question I want to just sort of bring up as well, and I talked with one of the people that offered to volunteer to help with the sort of reset and continued engagement process, is do we want to bring in an outside consultant to do this additional engagement as well? That would be additional cost. We haven't even scoped anything on that, but if council is interested in going that route, we can look into it.
Well, the past public involvement consultants have been in the 50 grand range, haven't they?
Yeah, I think that this one would be a smaller effort. But that said, I haven't met with the planning commissioner who was delegated by the planning commission to bounce the ideas around. So if the effort is just public involvement and outlining a list of to-dos without actually fleshing out any of the to-dos, it could be a much smaller contract than 50.
Okay.
What's the benefit of having somebody facilitate that for us, as opposed to us doing it?
Trust issues are different with that. Sometimes there's more trust, sometimes there's less trust, but trust issues are different. Staff time and effort is much reduced.
Just out of curiosity, is there anybody that's retired in the community that has that base of knowledge that can work with you?
And that's Phil Crawford is one of those that was volunteering, and so
Okay.
he's got a lot of that experience from the past. Again, working with them to really scope out what they're willing to do to help. I don't know, but
It just seems like, I was talking to a citizen about this the other day, is that we have a lot more, it seems like we have a lot more retired people coming into the community, and there's a wealth of knowledge there. And if we could start drawing on that a little bit more, and maybe, give us a hand in some of these things.
And
So,
I think one thing Ben pointed out too is, so there's a cost to get a consultant, but it frees up staff time. So the cost to the city for not getting that consultant is reduced staff time
Yep.
for other products. So there's a cost either way. It's just
who you're paying.
right, exactly. Yeah.
opportunity cost.
Yes,
There you
yeah,
go.
yeah.
More?
Do you, maybe some direction on that? Do you want us to pursue outside consultants or hold until we know more? If we find out more in the month and that our recommendation at the staff level would be outside consultants and we brought you a contract, would that be out of line?
I will defer to staff's recommendation on this one.
For whatever reason, I ruffle for, it seems like a small project to go outside and decide, let them kind of pick a direction where they're, like to Dave's point, there might be somebody here with that skill set to take that off your plate. We talked about this almost at length at the retreat. How can we help you without hiring someone? But yeah, first blush for me, try to keep it local and then, but with the idea that, yeah, if we could get a way to get that off your plate, give it some that direct, give it a little bit of this so that you can go and do a little bit of that someplace else. That sounds great.
Yeah, I guess until we know the scope.
Like that time we got
What
Summer
looking at.
Mead to facilitate our meeting.
Yeah.
That was brilliant. You did great.
I think that could be an
Okay.
option also, just having somebody facilitate, but still doing the project internally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what I'm seeing too, just as general trends, for a long time after the recession, you all were hearing that we need more flexibility. And so a lot of the conversations that were occurring were unanimous from you, from the planning commission, from the public who showed up. Flexibility is good. We've sort of reached the end of that, the recession memory, and the idea of change is creeping back in to say, let's keep controls on what the change is that occurs. So these things happen, it's a pendulum, and we navigate them, so.
Goodness.
Anything else?
Just really excited about that transportation plan. You all have the benefits of relying on a water plan, a sewer plan, and we don't for transportation. So thank you for considering that contract next time that it comes up.
Nice little plug there.
And so I can kind of segue into that. We currently have a statement of work. I wanted to confirm some of the extras, more or less, that we were going to talk with. One of them is a Safe Routes to School plan. I wanted to engage the school district first to see if they would be open to participating in that, as well as the parking study. And so if you include both of those items, as well as what we asked for in the RFP, it's just over $51,000. So it's very reasonable. And again, the timeline wraps up sometime in September, beginning in May and ending in September. And so it's a reasonable cost, reasonable timeline. I think we budgeted $80,000 for it. So there's some savings there. And I think also one thing that seemed evident too in that is depending on how the study works out, it's a good opportunity for a long-term partnership with some guidance on this. They work with Washougal and some other local cities to, again, just
And the price is right.
Right, and the price is right. Yeah, and they leverage. One of the reasons why I feel that their price might be lower and more cost effective is they leverage big data. And so, especially for our town, it's a lot. I feel it's better to leverage some of that data because when you're here for a day or a week, it's
What's big data?
oh, sorry. So your phones, pulling the data from your phones. Where are you traveling? What time are you traveling? Where are you going? And all sorts of other data points that they are able to access and compile to get traffic trends for areas, which helps especially in time of COVID because people aren't traveling as much or the travel patterns have changed. So they can pull that data from a year or so ago and get that, but also because of the seasonality of what we have, they can also take into consideration those trends as well. So looking forward to it.
And it sounds also like it would be a good partnership, I mean, with the schools, the school involvement, and we had that on our goals too, was to develop more community partnerships, so we're checking out that box too.
So, good things.
Yes.
One thing on security, I did touch base with the county as far as the panic button project that they were working on, security system. They were going out to bid or getting quotes for it. And so they'll, again, it'll be an added layer of security when we get there. So that kind of fell off the radar with COVID. And I don't know if, so Rob's still on, hey, Rob, I was wondering if you would be able to talk about the Fireban County notice that went out.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so I just got that email a little while ago, or opened it. Don't really have much context other than I knew other counties in the area were doing a ban. It sounds like it's a ban, temporary ban driven for all of the DNR Pacific Cascade region counties. So basically cuts out the small debris burn ban, self-issue permits that we issue out at the box outside of the entrance to City Hall. So we'll have to pull those. If Mary didn't pull those today when Liana and I got the email, I'm sure it'll be done in the morning. So yeah, it's a temporary burn ban until next, basically next Friday. And it's due to unseasonably high temperatures and relative low humidity. And there's also a forecasted east wind event that is kind of like the perfect storm. In the Gorge area, we've had several wildfires on the Washington and the Oregon side. They've had a couple 5 to 10 acre fires up in the Hood River Valley. There was a 35 acre fire up in Glenwood. And then there's been a couple fires down on the west end of the county. So it's kind of just out of abundance of caution with the weather mix. It's kind of like the holes in the Swiss cheese are lining up for a potential event for a rapid spread. If we get a
Does this apply to recreational fires as well?
no, it didn't. So the recreational fires are still valid, still allowed. The county didn't consult me on this. I didn't know anything about it until I opened up the email. I usually ask that just to keep it in the conversation, and usually the county doesn't go as far as the recreational fires this early in the season. That's more of a late season decision that we make. But I would urge everybody to use caution if they're doing recreational fires. Because the majority of fire starts this time of year is from debris piles that get away, and they're usually, you go out and you do your burning in the afternoon or in the morning, and then it dies down in the afternoon and your fires looks like it's out. And then you end your day, and then the wind comes up the next day and starts up embers from the coal bed, and then it spreads when you're not around. So that's the majority of how we see these wildfires happening in the spring.
Hey, Rob, while we've got you on the line here, Ben brought up a point here. Can you take a moment to brag about the new truck?
Yeah, I actually got a new picture. Let me.
Oh. Here, can you share your screen maybe if I, let's see.
No cat videos.
So that muted you and stuff, but if you can share you should be able to share your screen. Oh, here we go. Never mind. Now you should be able to share your screen.
Okay, let me see if I can get it up here without totally screwing everything up.
Good luck.
Yeah, I wanted everybody to know this took about a half a day of practice to figure out how many computers we needed to get on this one. So.
It's not easy, I know. Good job.
And I'm pretty sure we figured out the executive session snafu, but we'll see.
Scott put me on the spot here.
Right?
Oh, it was Ben.
Ben did it. Well, now that makes a lot more sense.
I can finish up my report while you're doing that, Rob.
I think I got it. Yeah, finish up the report and then I'll be ready.
Okay, perfect. So I just wanted to let everyone know that candidate filing week is May 17th to the 21st for open council positions. So those would be, so there's there will be 3 council positions, Robert and Amy's full term, and then Dave's partial term. Those seats will be up for election, and then the mayor is also up for re-election as well. And then I received an email today about long-term care insurance that was passed by the state, and it will be instituted similar to the Paid Family Medical Leave Act in that it will be an employee paid benefit. And the maximum that you can get those $36,500, and you have to be working for, like, basically it takes 10 years to vest into.
Wow.
And the only way you can opt out of it is if you have proof of long-term care insurance.
Wow.
And sign up with the state before it goes into effect.
So restrictive.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna work on trying to get long-term care for our employees to sign up. And so I don't know whether or not that would require paperwork to council to approve, but we're working on that. And we'll go from there. It's 0.58% of the wages is what the deduction would be. So it's more than the PFML amount. And it goes into effect January of 2022. So we're starting and getting information on that, and more to come. And that's all I have.
Where's that fire truck?
So Rob, whenever you're ready.
All right, I think I got this. Let me see.
Yay!
Yay!
Oh, that is a new picture.
Yeah.
Nice.
So this was a fire district truck, but Ben and Liana and Carl and myself did a lot of work on the grants. So we definitely wouldn't have gotten the grant if it wasn't for the heavy work that Ben did, and then the supplemental work that Liana and Carl and myself did. So this is Ben's truck, in my opinion. I did the heavy work on it. So
How many times did it take for you to get this grant though? Is it 3 or 4?
yeah,
Application cycle?
3 or 4 years of trying it and tweaking it and building the project up to where we finally got the right combination. So this truck replaces a 1969 auto car tender that was a repurposed county garbage truck that Gail Collins built when he was fire chief and public works director, and I believe in 1989. So
Oh my gosh.
we got another 30-year truck for, I think the total project cost is going to come in at $528,000 with a local match of $28,000. So
Wow. That's awesome.
pretty darn
But yeah,
good.
we got a, $500,000 project for $28,000 of local taxes.
What did you do with the other truck? How, when you retire it, what does that mean? Where does it go?
So
Salvage.
we're actually working up a plan for that. It's gonna go surplus. So we talked about it at the commissioner meeting on Monday. I basically have some research to do over the next month, and then the fire commissioners are gonna decide how we're gonna disposition that through the surplus process. So
Okay. Good.
Rob, there's great websites for that to sell it off when it gets into surplus for the city. So.
yeah, Carl mentioned the city uses I think it's govdeals.gov or something like that. So we're going to look at that. We're going to look at some private, there's been some private interest over the last year or so, and then see if there's any value on going into like I guess you would call it a retail resale market. There's some companies that do that. So
There's also some auctions for that for fire engines too. So
yep. Yeah, that govdeals.com is an auction site. So
right.
Yeah, we have a good policy in place at the district that gives us quite a bit of options on how to disposition that asset. So yeah, that's our truck. It might be here as early as next week. So, and then it goes into Hillsboro to another vendor to get all the tooling and equipment put on it. So I'm hoping to have it in service by the mid to end of May.
Managing federal FEMA grants is no joke.
No, those
Yeah,
are serious.
it's I'm still going back and forth with the Department of Homeland Security Civil Rights Division. We had to develop some non-discriminatory policy and equal access policies, and it's been a learning experience, and it's involved a couple lawyers and some money, but I think once we get it figured out, we'll have a pretty solid set of civil rights policy for the fire district. So
Good job.
Good
you
job.
know how those lawyers are, right, Robert?
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Rob. Okay, so you said that was it for your report, Leona?
Yes.
All right, I would entertain a motion to approve the vouchers.
Motion to approve the vouchers as presented.
Second.
There is a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Thank you,
Aye.
Amy.
Aye.
Thank you. Did you say aye? Did I hear that right? Anybody have anything for the greater good?
Executive session?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
we're almost
After
there.
that, yeah.
All right, if you guys don't have any reports, is there anything that city council would like to see for the next agenda? If you think of anything, Liana is receptive and very friendly. She doesn't bite.
Yeah, I'd like to see what, if anything's come up about the anti-racism training. I don't know where that was
I've
last
not had
left anytime.
chance, yeah. Okay.
So maybe we just,
Yep.
as a reminder, put that down again.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Scott, just a quick question.
Hey.
Carl, are you still on? Ben?
Oh, he changed his name.
I was able to change it, yeah.
I am, and yeah, thank you, Liana.
Yeah, Carl, just a quick question. On the follow-up up on Hyman Cemetery Road, No Name Road, can you give us an update on what's happened up there?
Yeah, so we met, we being myself, 2 employees of the cemetery district, the Krugs and the Dobleys, and basically just reiterated what was stated at the council meeting of let's come to some sort of agreement where all parties are as happy as they can be, and we obtain that goal. It's my understanding, I can't remember his first name, but Pat Dobley's son said that he would take care of all the brush that was extending out of their property. It's my understanding that's been done. He asked if he could have a couple of weeks to do that. It's my understanding that he did it. I haven't been up there to check on the progress of it or what it looks like, though. That was the outcome of that meeting.
Okay, the reason I ask, I
Carl, Gordy
actually
was
drove
up
up
there
there
Tuesday
today to take a look. Who said what?
Gordy
What'd you say, Robert?
was up there Tuesday morning. Gordy was up there Tuesday morning when I was up there.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't see what they were doing, but he rode by in the truck at about 7 o'clock.
No, so the city crew was up there. We've got a water service that we need to run up there on Steel Cove Lane. So that's what the city crew is doing up there. But Larry, yeah, there's going to be a new house off of Steel Cove Lane.
Yep, it's right there on the corner.
Yep. So anyways, that was the outcome of that.
Okay, I was up there actually today, and they've taken those laurel trees that were growing through the bushes. There's still about 1.5 feet sticking out through the fence of just a bunch of stubs and a bunch of laurel pieces laying in the road, but it's definitely a lot wider. And I was curious about the property corners and where our 50 foot is, and how it presents itself up there in regards to what kind of vehicles are going to be getting in there with the weather getting better and people wanting to gain access and trespass.
So on the no name, on the Iman Cemetery portion of it, the extension, I'm hesitant to call it No Name Road. There's a stake. If you see the fence of the cemetery, if you're walking into the cemetery, off to the right is a property stake. And from that property stake, it goes, and draw a straight line over to Iman Cemetery Road. There's a couple of huge fir trees that have been established. Those are basically in our right of way. They're 80-year-old trees, but just to put a perspective on it, that's where our right of way is. The rocks that are there that are kind of a retaining wall, we discussed moving those. The problem with that, we'd only be gaining maybe 1 foot to 1.5 feet. They actually are retaining that bank back. It was discussed with all the stakeholders that it's fine if they're there. I do need to see how much of those laurels are trimmed back and revisit to make sure everybody's still happy with the outcome. And that was part of that meeting, is that I would revisit it and make sure, everybody did what they said they were going to do. On the Holly Street side, there was discussions of where the actual right-of-way is. So I agreed to get a surveyor in for the city to determine exactly where that's at. Since then, a survey has been done or is going to be done for a prospective property owner off of Holly Street. So that survey is going to be done, then we will know for sure where those lines are. Once those lines are established, then those PUD poles need to be pulled back to that line, and then the cemetery can use that for additional parking. I did say that the city would add gravel where needed. No Name Road, Iman Extension Road, does need some gravel, so we'll be adding gravel there.
Okay, well, Carl, thank you very much, because I just
And actually,
wanted
Dave,
to
I
make
don't know
sure
if when you
that.
stand at the
What's
Go ahead,
that, Robert?
Robert.
That's right, Dave, if you're standing at the cemetery fence behind the house and you look due north, the orange stake that constitutes what is the right of way is right in front of that garage. So you'd have to pull that whole fence out if you wanted to take the full amount of the right of way.
Right. that's kind of what my interpretation was when I was up there. And I also found the other stake at the other end of where it goes out into the brush heading north towards the water. I found that stake as well.
Right.
So, right. Well, Carl, thank you very much for following up on that, because that was my main concern, is that we weren't just leaving it just flounder. So thank you for all of your work on that.
Yeah, no problem. And that it was a good meeting. So I mean, it was. I think, like I said, everybody was as happy as they could be. There was some definite give and take, but yeah, it was a good outcome.
Thank you. Good. We got the vote on the vouchers. We did next meeting. So now it's time for executive session. Do you have
Okay, so, is it over here?
We're gonna go to the restroom when we get things.
I'm gonna need about 5 extra minutes to talk about it, to do the technology.
I can still go through all of this and
Yeah, you can
we
still
can
go through all
shut
that.
down the Zoom meeting for now.
Yeah,
Okay, so we are about to go into open session for the purpose
executive
of
session.
executive session under RCW 402.30.1101B to consider the selection of a site or the acquisition of real estate. We will go into, we'll go for, let's call it 15 minutes.
What time's that end? I'll set an alarm.
Maybe I'll save the end time until we're ready to.
Right.
Do you want to do that right now?
Yeah, so 15 minutes, and it's what, 8:21 right now?
Yeah.
So 8:36?
8:36.
And remember, you can't end it early. So
Right.
take your time
So
accordingly.
we'll be out, yeah. And I'll provide updates on a Word document that I have on my other screen. So I emailed out the invite to everyone else, so I will set that up now and we will see you there.
And you leave the open session open, correct?
Yes, I'm leaving the open session open. That's
And
what
we
is on
come-
my screen.
And we come back to adjourn, right?
Yes, yes.
You just need a quorum. We don't need anybody. We just need a quorum.
Okay, great.
Right.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Uh-huh. Oh, technical difficulties. There
All
we
right, we came out of executive session into regular session at 8:46. There are no decisions to be made. Staff is directed to proceed as discussed. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you all very much for your time.
Okay.
Well,
Bye,
well,
everybody.
that-